Hello, everybody. This is take two. This is my second try of trying to make a video. First of all, I'd like to tell you that I love you, Mom, and Jeremy, my cousin, and Alex, Ren, and Paulo. And I guess we've kind of entered a somewhat heated topic, and I'm sorry that I offended you. I've been offended. Not to say that um, any of us meant to cause trouble, right? We're just standing up for what we believe in. And I guess how this started is Alex posted something, not just Alex, a lot of people posted stuff when this thing happened with this guy jogging or whatever he was doing, and the ex-cop shot him, and there's someone videotaping it. But when it first came out, everybody was parroting. I felt like, wait, let's take a step back. I just want to take everybody's side for a second. Could you humor me for a minute? To take everyone's side because I feel like everybody has some very good points. I'm totally with Jeremy. Um, I do believe it was in his mind it was murder. Yeah, like I could see that's being truthful, but I also see that the officer was justified. So it's possible for both these people being justified, and it's sad that one person died. But I'm going to try and take everybody's side. This is my attempt. So what the media did is like at first they were using trigger words, like two white men hunted black men down and killed them. Like I knew like after a while that this was possibly clickbait and had a lot of underlying agendas by political CNN news media. I'm sorry, that's probably going to offend some people because there's a lot of people that are liberal, and sometimes when you bring up liberal ideas, they feel like I'm going to be attacking them, but I'm not trying to attack you. I'm sorry. But anyway, the way it came out, and you have to be aware of how other people are going to perceive your news. It was kind of like a clickbaity thing, right? And you guys need to be more aware of what these politicians are doing. You need to be aware of what I'm doing too, right? So I'm going to try and put my own political spin on this, I guess you could say. But the video, I wouldn't like when it first came out, the media wasn't showing you much of anything, right? They honed in on one small thing and they try to make it this storyline. They want you to click on it and get uh, some stardom, and you can have as many likes. But after watching the video, I'm like, there's no real evidence here that it's underlying racism at all. Like, you have no idea what's going. All you see is just a guy running down the road, not in running shorts, but I guess that's my own take on it. I mean, I've ran too with pants, and so everything's just inconclusive when I first saw it. And I was like, okay, off the evidence that CNN just gave me, they cannot be making these accusations. Like, that's totally absurd and insanity that people are just going with what the media. I'm not going to drink that Kool-Aid. You guys, some of you did, but I'm kind of glad that some of you did drink the Kool-Aid because there is some truth to what they were saying and how things play out in life. But now there's a lot more evidence and everything else. Okay, some people are just off of that small scripted video are saying that he was murdered and not really doing any research on the internet or understanding what's going on. They just see a black man get killed and they think it's murder kind of mentality. And I'm like, that's not going to get you very far in life if you're thinking that way. So you need to see what's happening before, way before, and kind of understand where this guy's coming from and everything else. Okay, let's look at the LA. Remember the LA shooting. What if, I'm not saying he wasn't at all, but what if he was a shooter at LA and he ditched his guns and he ran, and the news media was just showing this black guy getting shot by two citizens who were trying to do a citizen's arrest, but they didn't tell you all that information before. Do you think that's still murder if they killed this black man if he was doing that? Because the news media didn't tell you that, right? They're going to omit any information and not take responsibility if they can avoid it, right? So they're just going to keep producing this and trumpeting until they feel like people are going to back off on it, And you just need to be mindful that people are going to take one small excerpt of someone's life and blow it out of proportion and put a political spin on it. And I guess that I'm kind of doing that right now to some sense. But later on, more evidence came out, and like this is totally not based in racism or anything like that. It's just like kind of like a legitimate, normal, not unnormal situation where two unfortunate things happen. And honestly, I feel like everyone's kind of the victim in this circumstance. It's just tragic, and it's sad. And I speak for Jeremy right now, and I feel from your perspective, yes, it was murder because he doesn't deserve to die for stealing, right? That was very overbearing of the ex-cop. But to say for defending the ex-cop at the same time, he didn't know the runner, jogger, black guy. I don't even like using color because this color skin means nothing. I'm going to just call him the defendant and ex-cop, because color skin doesn't really, it may have a factor in this, but looking at the video, you cannot say anything that race has anything to do with this other than you're being racist by diving into the color skin right off the bat. You have a racist mentality going, and you kind of have to like let that go for a moment. But anyway, the cops just, ex-cop doesn't know this guy. And if somebody if you have a gun, you're trying to do a citizen's arrest, and somebody tries to take your gun, like, yeah, there's that possibility that they could take it and shoot you. But that's like a pessimistic mind. And for me, after my incarceration and everything, like I've been in that black guy's shoes, I guess, or the defendant's shoes, and not exactly the same way, but that doesn't mean he's going to turn around and shoot him. So you guys can't just jump to conclusion. And that's what police do a lot. And a lot of citizens get murdered because cops want to be judge, jury, and executioner. And that's not how the judicial system was designed from our forefathers. The objective or responsibility of a police officer is really not to be everything in one, right? Like, they're just supposed to detain and de-escalate the situation. The judge and jury is supposed to execute the punishment, and a lot of times police officers try to be all that in one, and that's not the way the system is supposed to work. You're supposed to de-escalate the situation. So there's like lots of ways this could have been avoided from the police officer, ex-cop's perspective. You don't have to go lethal right away. You know, he could have mace. And this is kind of a weird thing for me because I would use bear mace. I would like to have different ways of de-escalating a situation. If he had mace, this could have been a whole different story, right? You could have sprayed him with some mace and it would have been over. And he couldn't make the argument that I guess he could still try, but he couldn't try to mace him. And the guy in the back could have the gun, or he could have mace too. So two guys with mace, I don't think you have a very good chance of being murdered, you know, if you're the overzealous cop here. I feel that's my personal take on it. Please take it with a grain of salt, because I mean, I've been in the bad guys' view before, and you get these overzealous citizens and cops that want to use you as a specimen to make themselves look better. And that's what happened with my case and the Johnsons and everything. And yeah, I guess I could go into that a little bit more. I've never really shared my testimony with Alex or Paulo. I've kind of give bits and pieces to people, but yeah, it's I can understand what people are going through a little bit right now, but yeah, it's just, but when this case first came out, people kept talking about how it was being racism, and I had already, like, when it first came out, put it aside in my head that like they are really not thinking right, people that are going out and doing these runs, because they're jumping to conclusions before the evidence even really comes out or investigation's done. That's why due process is important. And I want justice for this. And I think that the ex-cop himself should do time. And what Andis, people are, I think, misinterpreting when I posted Candice Owens' testimony. She has a lot of truth in what she said, but people are misinterpreting that I'm justifying the cop, I think. I'm not really. He is in some sense justified, but she's just trying to be realistic with people because a lot of people are ignorant of the justice system, and that's not their fault. In fact, I feel like the justice system tries to keep people as ignorant as possible so that they can do whatever they want to people. And that's not a far stretch. And there's some people who are police would say the opposite, but that is not my personal experience. But anyway, what Candice Owens is, she's just trying to be practical with people. Like, if you haven't been part of the justice system, this is what's going to happen. She's not taking either person's side. I'm not. I am, and I'm entertaining it just to show you guys like different takes of what I think of it. But anyway, so like people are so infatuated with law today that they think they can do anything to anybody because the law says you can do it. To those of you that believe that the law justifies your actions, you are in a complete delusion that you think you can do whatever you want because the law says you can. And I mean, the Nazi, I don't like bringing up the Nazis a whole lot, but they passed all kinds of laws and everything in their own culture to do whatever they want. So I feel really sorry for the family that lost their son on this. And there's going to be a lot of people saying that, they were justified by the law. And the law, if people are going to the law, it's just really sad that you think you can go to the law and justify your actions, because life is more than about law. There's this thing called love, right? Where Jesus commands us to love our enemies, right? So like I guess there is some excuse, right, for these things to happen, but it's just sad how things turn out sometimes. And like I said before, I was incarcerated for a year, and I felt like people, just like they're doing now, like this overzealous cop, were taking things that are happening in my life and blowing them way out of proportion and trying to make me look like a monster. And they don't really have any evidence against me. I've been fighting this case for 9 years now, and I'm still fighting it now, and I'm talking to my lawyer and stuff and everything, and justice doesn't always happen in the court systems, and some people think that a verdict in court means that they're right, and in God's eyes, it may mean nothing at all. Like, God created the universe, and men do weird things, and they're not always right, and they think in a court of law, and being what is a Christian nation, but some people don't think it's a Christian nation, but those that think it is still, they think that the justice system sometimes is always going to do right, and a judgment is God's judgment, and it really isn't. And there's a lot of gray in these areas. And to say that, I feel like is somewhat some wisdom into this situation. Because, I mean, you think of the prophet Daniel and all these other prophets that have kind of, in a sense, attacked authorities, and authorities try to ostracize them, just kind of like this Candice Owens. She says she's looking for a lot of people taking things out of context, what she said, and they're going to try and twist it to what she doesn't mean. I don't think she's really trying to be racist, I mean, she's black, right? So if anything, right, like color of skin matters, but like it does it, but it really doesn't matter. And people, I don't know, I don't feel like we're really living in a racist America. And that's what she's trying to say at the same time. And so many people want to get on this bandwagon and be like, America's racist. And like, I have lots of different kinds of friends and stuff that are all different races. I love all kinds of people. I love police officers. I kind of bias against them most of the time because of the circumstances I've gone through. But to be honest, I feel like they are in a sad predicament where they're enforcing unlawful orders, and that happens, and a lot of Christians don't see it that way. They think whenever a police officer does anything to anyone, they're completely justified because of the scripture that says that God does appoint governments to be put in power to punish the evildoer. But they think every single situation, almost, they have this one-track mind where they think whenever a police officer does something, he's justified because he's a government official. And they have to look at the whole entire Bible and look at the big picture. And no one wants to look at the whole Word of God and look at the bigger picture. You can't just only highlight one small thing. And I guess as a reach out to Jeremy again, as being an artist, like if you look at a painting and you look at one small thing, you look real close back, look at all these imperfections. This is a terrible piece of art. But if you step back and look at this beautiful masterpiece, those aren't errors. That's a picture. Like people zoom in on one little thing and blow it way out. And that's what happened to me when I was in jail and stuff. People were taking things way out of context and trying to make me out to be this person that wasn't true. And it's just sad how this stuff happens sometimes. For example, like some people think that because you're contacting them, that it means that if they don't want to hear from you and you contact them, that means you're stalking them. And that's a very narrow-minded interpretation of things. I can prove that in so many ways that that's not true. And like Lauren Bauer, she's like my best friend's sister and stuff, but she posted something recently about a dog that got shot by a cop off duty. I feel like this is very relatable to what's happening with this case. So a off-duty cop and his wife were walking down the sidewalk, and he said he felt threatened for his life, and a Great Dane came running after him and said he felt threatened for his life and shot the dog. I'm like, okay, there's not a whole lot of evidence to whatever they're saying, but there's just a lot of things that can go on in a situation like this, and people don't take very many things into consideration. For one, that like there's a witness there and they don't know, a witness being a neighbor, that the dog's not, I guess he's not known for being aggressive, or I guess she didn't think he was being aggressive. So the interpretation of someone's actions, like the way the cop interpreted the dog's actions, the way he handled it doesn't justify his actions. Because he feels threatened for his life doesn't mean he can give the death penalty to the dog, right? Like, why should the dog have to justify, or why should the dog have to suffer for his wrong perception about what the dog's doing? In his mind, he's justified, right? But if the dog wasn't attacking him and he shot the dog, I think there should be some restitution made, just like this jogger that was killed for possibly stealing, right? That's not a death penalty, guys. And the law system is biased a lot of times against people, and people do not understand the justice system at all. But I'm glad people are mad about it, because it's opening their eyes to the injustice of our justice system to people. Like, when you see a criminal, like, don't just jump to conclusions right away and make a bunch of assumptions about the person. So when I was incarcerated, there's a lot of self-righteous pastors and stuff, and there's some good ones too, but they automatically think that you're in there for doing something wrong, and it blows their mind that someone could be in there for doing something good, and they judge you right away just because you're in jail. And I thought that was kind of funny. And in the Bible, there's lots of prophets. I mean, like, if you're doing things for God, you're probably going to be put in jail, or there's a good chance you could be. But people think we live in a Christian nation, so if you're in jail, you must have done something wrong, right? But that's not true. And a lot of Christians today act like the legalistic or brood of vipers that existed back then when they crucified Jesus. They have this legalistic system that's not based on love. It's not based on a relationship with God. It's based on a merit system that's not working. It will never work. The merit system doesn't work, guys. That's why Jesus died on the cross, and that's why works don't save you. That's why laws don't save you. And God used murderers to do things. So if God actually forgives a murderer and lets him out of prison, that was God's doing, right? He did that. And people will still fight that and say that's unjust, but God's the just person. He's the judge, and people can't really weigh in on his judgments. I mean, we try to interpret his judgments and stuff, but it's hard sometimes. I guess I'm kind of going on a long spiel here, and it's going too long. But yeah, I was just trying to put out some of the fires that are out there and maybe stirring up some too, because I, I'm going to say a couple things that people probably, just because a cop is killed doesn't mean somebody did something wrong, right? So many people think, or the justice system set up so it doesn't honor the Constitution. For me, I believe the Constitution is right, the Bible is right, and people think the Constitution and the Bible are just this fairy tale that don't exist anymore, and that's not true. I mean, a lot of people died for the Constitution. We should still be obeying it. There's a lot of things that the government's doing that violates the Constitution, and the Constitution in and of itself says that citizens can bear arms and resist. So it's not a crime to resist arrest, but to the justice system it is, because they think they're right all the time. I guess that's a little bit exaggeration, but not really, because it's geared to make them win no matter what, and they have the biggest problem accepting responsibility for their actions. And it's kind of ironic that this guy that killed this defendant was an ex-cop. It's tragic. I'm very sad about it, but at the same time, people are starting to see things in a new light, and I like this new narrative. But I'm sad that somebody had to die for people to start seeing the injustice in the justice system. And I'm hoping that these legalistic Christians like the Johnsons and everybody that were ganging up on me will start seeing the truth about their actions. But I don't think they will ever accept the truth. And I'm not going to force my ideas on them or what I think about them on them like they did me. Essentially, that's what the police officer was doing to this black guy. He thought he was, this criminal, and he was going to go catch him, right? I don't think he actually meant to kill him, though, right? So I'm there. Then again, I'm kind of justifying some of his actions, but at the same time, that was overbearing. People don't have a concept of being overbearing. Like, that was extremely overbearing, because he did not know that guy's situation at all. And he should have tried to de-escalate the situation. And he's an ex-cop, so just pretend that he's a cop. Humor that with me for a moment, that he's a cop, right? They would have handled it the same way so many people think that cops would have handled it. They would not have, right? I mean, in that instance, if they would have called, yeah, maybe. But if the cop were in that very specific entanglement with the defendant, he would have shot and killed him. Let's say that he was really innocent, because I do think he was on that property to steal. But let's just give him the benefit of the doubt, just for grins, or not really. This isn't a grinful situation, but what if he was fighting, right? And he was fighting for his freedom, right? So that's completely justifiable in the Constitution. He can fight for his freedom. So the black guy's totally justified. The other guy's justified. If anything, I feel like the ex-cop or cop needs to be punished. And unfortunately, the justice system is not created that way, to give justice to this poor man that died, because this is kind of bad to say, he's an ex-cop, and they have the cop-out term. Everybody knows the cop-out term wasn't coined for no reason. And I hope maybe some laws can be implemented because of this situation, where people can actually have justice in the justice system. But the Bible never says, the Bible does not want us to get justice through this system. Like, it talks about us handling matters at church, right? This guy didn't have to get his guns to come and arrest him. He could have tried to talk to him calmly. Like, to me, if somebody comes to me with a gun, right, and starts accusing you of all these things, like, they may have good intentions, but for a lot of people, that's not that how they're going to interpret it. They like there's a high chance that they're going to be defensive about it, and that's what happened, right? The defendant was very defensive, and if he could have approached him and be like, hey man, we know what's going on, or we think we do, can we talk to you? Not, hey, like, who are you? You're not God. Like, some authorities think they're God and they think they should bow down and worship the ground that you walk on. And I've been around a lot of police officers that act that way, and justice system, and they live by stonewalling people, and they don't want to be held accountable to their actions, and they always justify their ways, and they're always trying to twist it back on the citizen who is defending for his life. I feel like the defendant, he in that moment, I feel like he felt like he was defending for his life, and it didn't deserve the death penalty, right? Stealing is, I mean, it is a sin, right? You could kill anybody because God is perfect. Everybody deserves the death penalty, right? Because his perfection is so awesome. Like, but he loves us so much that he forgives us for those things. And in our culture and society, like, you have to be able to forgive people. And even if he was stealing, yeah, there should be some justice to that. And like, putting people in prison isn't the answer to our society's problems. And a lot of police officers and justice system think that putting people in prison is the answer to our problem. And if people are going into the justice system and getting worse, I think they're kind of becoming part of the problem. And the nature of the beast of the justice system is that it's a profit generating system. The more people that are in prison, the more people they are going to have to employ, the more money they're going to make. So there is greed. Everybody has greed, right? So like, the inherent system of the justice system isn't necessarily there to help people at all. It's kind of there to punish people, but some people make profit and living off of it, and they want to keep it there, right? That's just the fact and reality of it. And it's really sad that it's that way. But people, when they go to jail, they need help, and like, they get out of jail and people are so judgmental of them, and they get no opportunity, and people think they know them and they don't, and they want to blow things up, and it's really sad what happens to them. And I mean, if God asked you to forgive a murderer and accept him in society and let him be free and be equal with you, you need to tolerate that and love him as Christ has loved you. And this very, very specific circumstance where this ex-cop killed this man, if the grand jury actually determines that it was murder, which I feel like is very unlikely, but all of us that wanted justice for him to be accused as murder, or whoever wants to, have to learn to forgive him in either way. Like, you have to learn to love him. It's just hard to bear all these things to think about, I know, but yeah, that's just how I feel about the whole situation, and I'm sorry that if I've stepped on some people's toes and stuff, but I do appreciate people standing up for what they believe in.